Today we're going to talk about liberating greatness. What does that mean? Well, stay tuned to find out. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Your Life Simplified. I'm Whitney Reagan, Senior Wealth Advisor here at Mariner and your host for today's episode. I'm thrilled about our guest today because not only is she has a myriad of credentials, which I'll tell you about in a second, but she is a personal inspiration to me. And I feel like she has helped me become a better version of me. Teresa Carey, she is a certified executive leadership coach for over 30 years. She also is the founder, president, and CEO of her own firm, Performance Point, which is an executive leadership coaching firm. She is a facilitator, a keynote speaker. The list goes on. She's also a strength Sherpa, and she has authored a couple of books. But for today's conversation, it's most relevant to talk about her most recently published book, which is called A Way to Wisdom, and it's a leader's weekly guide on reflection and leadership coaching and journaling. So without further ado, here is Teresa Carey. Thank you for joining us.
Hi,
How are you?
Whitney. It's great to be here. Anytime I get to talk about my favorite subject, my life's purpose, with one of my favorite people, it's always a good day. So I appreciate being here.
I think it's one of my friends calls it a mutual admiration society. So that must be what we have.
Well said.
So I'm really excited to have you. And I've actually been, ever since I started as a co-host last year of the podcast, which was a dream come true for me. And you probably know that because we've been actually working together for 7 years. Did you know that? It's been a long time.
It's a magic number.
It is.
7.
It's a lucky number.
Yeah.
So ever since I became host of the podcast, I have been wanting to have you on, and now just the stars aligned, and I got to have you as a guest today. And I think we'll talk about coaching, leadership, liberating greatness, which is something that I know you feel very passionate about. But I think to get kind of the blood flowing, I usually like to start with a softball question that's more about, what are you reading today or watching today that might be worth noting?
Well, I'm always reading.
It's
very easy to talk about that. One of my latest books I just finished is called Strength to Strength. It's by Arthur Brooks. And in the book, he talks about how it's so important to take what you've learned in the first part of your career and apply that in a different way in the second half of your career. And specifically, he talks about the whole research behind intelligence, the concept of intelligence, where you have fluid intelligence when you're up until about 40, and then you start to move into a place of more crystallized intelligence. So the first part about developing, attaining, gaining knowledge, you're very agile, very creative, innovative. And of course you can continue that. He's not saying it stops. He's just suggesting that you gain all that. And then the intelligence becomes more what he calls crystallized. And what the research points out is crystallized because it's more in the form of wisdom.
Oh my gosh.
And how you apply that in the second part of your journey.
That is beautiful. And it actually, I feel like it resonates with what you kind of talk about with your wisdom.
I know. It's uncanny that I didn't read that until after I published the book.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And I also love that it talks about the beginning part of your career journey, because I've thought about, I think I've said this on an episode before, but my most recent position is an advisor, but I feel like all of the positions before that have kind of come full circle and like helped me be where I'm at today. And I'm able to feel like bring all of those experiences, even from when I was a server or a bartender, and just like bringing some of those skills to be a better advisor.
Yeah. So I always say everything you've done up to this point in time has prepared you for this point in time.
I love it. Well, I think that there's a lot of great things that we're going to talk about. So let's jump right in. And maybe we should start with what is an executive coach? What's a leadership coach? Or how do you kind of describe your role to the people that you serve?
Yeah. I think a lot of coaches perhaps take different approaches. Some people think that coaching is about giving advice or counsel. It's really more about tapping into the leader's existing knowledge and releasing that in a way that allows them to answer many of their own questions. So it's more about asking the right questions than it is about giving the right answer. So first of all, I'd like to clarify that. My specific approach is to take the strengths of the leader and align those with the strategy of the organization. It's not just about making individual impact. It is that, certainly, but it's also about making sure that what we're coaching to within the leader and the areas of focus and play tie to the organizational strategic blueprint.
I love that you mentioned strengths and also the question. There's a lot of little nuggets actually just I want to unpack there. First, the question asking. I have to say, full disclosure, I am like Teresa has been my leadership and professional coach for 7 years, going on 7 years now. But I think what has helped me grow is the way that you are so authentic and great with words. And the questions that you ask helps myself, and I'm sure other leaders, but helps myself to explore what is already within me. So the way that you said that was way more concise, but it was really great. And I love also today that I get to ask you the questions instead of you asking me the questions.
Yeah, I'm usually on the other side of the table.
Yeah,
right?
So we got to get to flip roles. And then the fact that you just actually mentioned strengths and leaning into the strengths of each of the leaders. I was going to touch on this later and talk about like the strengths finder and how meaningful I think it is to myself and in my life. But I was hoping maybe since you already talked about it, maybe you can unpack or talk about why the strengths are so important to you and your career and how you go about liberating greatness.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the strengths piece.
Yeah, let's do it.
As someone who's been in the coaching and training and development profession for 30 years, I've seen a lot of tools. There's a lot of stuff out there. I never believe in using just one assessment tool or data point.
That's a great
to
point.
dig into the profile of a leader. However, when I found strengths or strengths found me, it's like the skies opened up because I had always used a strengths-based approach to coaching.
Mhm.
I don't think it makes a lot of sense to waste time on our weaknesses. There's a reason for that I'll share in a moment. But I found Strengths Finder, became such a raving fan. I achieved a really in-depth certification, actually a couple of certifications in the tool and how to coach to the tool. And what I've seen that create within leaders and within organizations who choose to become strengths cultures is pretty amazing. So if you think about organizations like Accenture, locally, you've got Cross First Bank, Southwest Airlines. A lot of people are surprised that those are in fact strengths-based cultures, but not that surprised when they see how the people, the associates show up and what the culture looks like. Why am I a fan? Here's why. We are complex individuals. And so to say that we're simply 1 in 4, like the DISC does, it's a great tool. I use it. It's great. Or 1 in 16, like the Myers-Briggs.
Mhm.
It way undervalues who we are as individuals. And isn't it comforting to know that we all have this universe of 34 strengths that resides within us?
Mhm.
And we are better at some of those than others. And that's who we uniquely are. So our top 5 strengths, Whitney, as you know, makes us 1 in 33 million. Our top 10 strengths makes us 1 in about 72 billion, where there are only 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And then if we take it out to that full 34, we're 1 in about 34 trillion.
Wow. In the order that they sit for you.
Based on the algorithms, the levels of intensity. Yeah. So what we know is that really speaks more to the individualization of who we are and kind of takes the pressure off that we don't have to be stuck in a box as the one of 4, the one of 16. There's not a right leader per se.
No, and I think it also really opened my eyes to leaning into what you're naturally good at rather than trying to fix or resolve some of my weaknesses or get better at something that I'm not so good at, but leaning into something that you're naturally good at. Okay, I can do that. I can just do it better.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Great perspective.
well,
and I've seen that in you.
It just resonates with me. And it means so much to me because I think it helped me with a common language across and better understanding my family, my husband, my friends, and my colleagues. And so I think that just was something that was very impactful to me. So I think the strengths piece is important. And what about liberating greatness? Maybe we should I feel like you should just talk about what liberating greatness means to you.
Liberating greatness is a purpose statement that I try to live all of my life by, whether it's business or personal. And so for me, liberating greatness is about leaving someone at a place of excellence or much greater level of performance, satisfaction, insight than they were before I found them. And it might not be a person. It might be a situation. But I want to make sure that everyone knows, hey, we had this experience together and we made it better together.
Wow. That's really powerful when you say it like that. I don't think I even knew that was what it really meant to you.
Think about the word liberation. That's really what's so powerful about it. For the longest time, freedom was a key word to me for a number of different reasons. But to be liberated, before you can be free within that liberation, you have to remove the obstacles and the interferences that are keeping you from freedom. So can we go back to that piece I teased out earlier?
Yes,
a little bit
let's
about
do it.
Weaknesses and strengths. So
Yes.
75% of weaknesses are actually strengths that are in overuse or underuse. So if you can unlock and figure out which strengths are in overuse or underuse, that's the interference to the greatness that needs to be liberated.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So what you're saying is if you have a weakness, it's really somehow related to a strength of yours that's either in overuse or underuse.
That's right. That's right. Because when strengths don't get what they need or can't contribute in the way they need to, they trigger.
And
that's they show up in a way
you opened up for me big time.
Yeah.
I think that when I was, just from a personal standpoint, when I was trying to decide if I wanted to change roles or shift my career, I realized that I wasn't at, I think this phrase I used from you, at my highest and best use, because many of my strengths were being neglected or were in underuse. Many of my top strengths.
Right.
So I think changing roles was helping me to be able to lean more into and use the appropriate amount of my top strengths.
And now you're moving into that area that we talk about and that I mention a lot with clients. It's on my website, Genius Zone.
Yes, I love the Genius
Zone. So when
Zone.
your performance is high and your passion and energy are both high and those intersect with performance, that's when you're in your genius zone, which is that best and brightest place. Right? Because we can be good at something, but not necessarily energetic around it. Like Correct. I can do financials, but I don't, there's a reason I hire people to do that. Right.
Yes. And when you say energy too, this is something that I think is important to clarify, because I've done the exercise of, okay, this task, does it give me energy or does it suck energy from me? So it's like the positive energy that you feel from a task or a project. And if it's positive energy and it's giving you energy, then that's a positive.
Right.
And then if you feel like you're really performing well in that task or project, that's positive too. And so that's when you kind of move towards that genius zone,
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I joke about this, but I want to be Teresa when I grow up.
Oh, that touches my heart. Thank you, Whitney.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you can just be you because that's so much greater.
I appreciate that. See Mutual Admiration Society. Okay, so I do want to go back. We started. We went down this path of strengths because it's something that's so meaningful to both of us. But maybe we can talk a little bit about your journey to become a coach. What does that look like? Was it kind of a like non-traditional path to get there, or did you know from when you were a kid you wanted to be liberating greatness?
When I was in 4th grade, I wrote an answer to an assignment that I was given. And the assignment was write one sentence that describes what you want to do when you grow up. And I found this piece of paper in a memory box when my parents had a move in the early 2000s. And the piece of paper said, I want to help people become better. I didn't know at that time that it would translate.
Is that like 10 years old?
Or
my
11,
gosh.
I don't know.
That's amazing.
There was something within me that knew it was about that.
That gives me goosebumps.
So I didn't know what that was, but what happened is my early first job in a document technology company was in sales. I think that's a great launch pad for any person's career. And then from there, because of my performance, I was put on a leadership track and asked to come into the corporate office and be a part of the professional development group. Fortunately, that group was a pioneer group in the area of coaching. And so I was able to go out in the field when I became more seasoned in training and help coach about 1,000 sales reps and leaders and roll out this coaching process. From there, because of the track and the trajectory they had me on, I moved to Kansas City to help lead a sales office here. And after about 3 years, I thought, I miss my love.
Yeah.
What I had really identified as my genius zone, which was helping unleash or liberate that greatness in other people. And so I decided, after a lot of consulting with mentors and pursuing educational options, to go back, get my master's degree and start my own business, which is what I did in 1994. So I already had that taste of coaching, did some coaching during my master's program, did a lot of contract work, worked for competitors, frankly, to understand what that would look like.
Wow. Yeah. So you also probably had a lot of really good coaching mentors in that experience and trajectory coming up.
I did. Yeah. Great insight.
Yeah. Mentors are very important. So I also agree that sales is a really good launch pad. I started in sales after a couple, like entry-level positions, and I realized I didn't love to push product, but the relationship building piece and being able to, you also create thick skin, and you even just like a cold calling exercise, I think is really great, just learning experience.
Yeah, because that grit and resilience proved beneficial in any role.
No doubt. Right? No doubt. I had a lot of interesting responses, and some people are just mean. So you really do, you get some thick skin in that position, I think. So you started your own firm, and so now that you're 30 years plus, I remember your anniversary, having your own firm and your own executive leadership coaching firm, how do you measure performance? How do you know that you've succeeded in helping somebody else liberate their greatness or become their best version of themselves? I also love that phrase because I feel like that's kind of what's happened to me personally, but how do you measure it?
We always start with a plan.
There you go.
And you can't manage what you can't measure. And so for that reason, we identify in looking at all the assessment tools that we use, what are the areas of focus for this leader, not just based on what their profile is presenting, that and considering where the organization is going. So what does the role command during that pre-rapid and rapid growth phase? And what does the organization demand of that role? And so considering all those things is high level, but we put a plan together and then we coach to that plan. And that allows us to measure results.
I like the connection between you're helping the individual, but you're also helping the individual to incorporate the values and the organizational goals so that it's like an interconnection between organizational growth and personal growth.
Right.
Personal and professional growth, I guess I should say.
That's right. And we typically work with teams of leaders, like a group of C-suite leaders, because when you're working with more than one leader that's part of a team, it's much easier to connect the dots, to help them connect the dots, and then track that to the goals of the team and the goals of the organization.
So when you were talking about your journey to get here and you were reflecting on, your sales trajectory and you decided to become or launch your own firm, that kind of reminded me of reflection and how important reflection is to you. And I think that that's kind of a nice, I guess, segue into the book that you most recently published. I actually have it here. I wanted to talk about it because I find it very valuable in my life. And I think it's an awesome guide for leaders, but really for anyone. So I wanted to understand, it's called The Way to Wisdom, a Leader's Weekly Guide. And I wanted to understand your goal behind the book and maybe what you were hoping to achieve when you wrote this.
Great question. It took an interesting twist, actually. So as you called out already, last year was my 30-year milestone in business. And leading up to that, I wanted to have an event and I thought I'd like to give a parting gift. I don't want it to be a mug or a quarter zip. Those are nice. However, I wanted it to have something tied to legacy and lasting value. So many years from now, when I'm no longer doing this, how could I have a place in the minds and the hearts of the people that I had worked with who've been so important to me? And so I started creating a journal. As you know, I'm an advocate of journaling. We see empirically the differences between those leaders who reflect and take that reflection time and those who don't. I'll come back to a study on that. So I wrote 52 weeks of prompts where a leader can sit in the leadership lesson weekly. This is not a weekend book binge. This is that weekly immersion in sitting in leadership and then reflecting through the journaling prompts that are provided.
It's more like creating your own routine or practice or ritual with this. At least that's the way that I've found it to be most useful, is creating your own ritual with it.
Yeah. So it doesn't add to your workload, as you've noticed. It just becomes a very natural part of your think time that you should be carving out anyway during the week as you become a more discerning leader, better decision maker, more creative, more innovative, more strategically agile and better in problem solving. And we know all those things are associated with the practice of journaling.
And what is think time to you? I just want to quickly pause on that topic because I don't think I knew what strategic think time meant until I met you. So what is that, just for the audience?
So first of all, you create the environment that allows that.
Yes.
Right? You set up your calendar with a spot that says weekly think time or strategy time with CEO, because you're your own CEO and you would never break that time. You'll be more sure to honor it. And so what is that time in the week where you can take a pause? Is it Friday afternoon? Is it once a day before you start your day? That's when I take mine. It creates intention and purpose for the day. And you don't necessarily check boxes or work on calendar items. A lot of people are prone to working on reactive activities. It's more about visioning, thinking ahead, taking a perplexing challenge and asking yourself, what are all the different ways to resolve this? When I've been faced with a similar problem in the past, how did I work on this? What happened to make sure that I made progress in this area or resolved it? So it's those types of questions that you ask yourself that give you the deep work and the deep mindset to be able to create the lift as a leader, to again be more strategic and more thoughtful and creative. And the self-awareness increases exponentially.
Well, and you're just emotional intelligence. I think that what I've realized, because I was always a person that was like, well, what do I journal about? Do I need prompts, or what should I be writing about today? But once I noticed in the journaling process, even if you start with something specific that you might be responding to, it just like opened the floodgates of ideas and ideation, which happens to be one of my top strengths. But ideas and like creative thoughts on maybe like a business model. And it just was like, oh, I just thought of a new idea. And it just like starts flowing. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's a textbook example. What I found in coaching leaders is when I would assign them think time or strategic think time, we'd talk a little bit about it and they would ask, well, what do I write? And that's why there are prompts in the book. It would have been very easy just to write a book on leadership and share leadership lessons and insights. But what makes it so rich and helpful for a lot of leaders who are learning the practice and the art and the benefits of journaling is they have those prompters to guide them through the 52 weeks each quarter and at the end of the year.
So I may have interrupted you, but you were mentioning that you started it as a parting gift for your 30-year anniversary milestone last year. But then what happened?
Well, I started having leaders that I know, some of whom are mentors and just other people I have good relationships with, to read it, to start vetting it. And they said, this is a great gift. It's a prime candidate for a journal that should be widely distributed. And so I had thought of that, but I hadn't really thought about it as seriously just because I was so focused on creating this meaningful gift for clients. And that's when we decided to distribute it. And it was released last June on the same day as our 30-year anniversary. And you received a copy, of course.
This is my well-loved, it is a worn copy, but yes, it is well-loved. So has your life changed because of the book? Do you feel like your life or career has changed because of the book this most recent book that you put out?
I feel like it was another marker in Liberating Greatness. And it allowed me to memorialize some things that I want people to have and be able to use as part of their journey toward liberating greatness.
Well, and you've just collected so many good lessons and nuggets across your entire career that I feel like you can now share with so many people through this journal or this weekly guide. And so I think that it's an incredible tool for anyone to use.
Thank you.
So I know that I've already been a big advocate of the book, but and I'm so glad that we got to talk about it. But I wanted to ask you just a few, as we kind of come to our close, I wanted to ask you just a few more questions because I feel like you have such unique experience, and I feel like you're just authentically you. So I just love hearing some of your answers to maybe some of these questions. What would you say is your biggest challenge that you've overcome?
I think I would consider that from two different perspectives, very vulnerably and authentically. Going through a divorce was probably one of my biggest challenges, and being a single mom for the early part of that. That's the biggest personal challenge. One of the biggest business challenges was making the decision to back away from having a larger team. I don't think a lot of people I work with now know that at one point I had 10 other people on my team.
You had like employees of 10 different people in addition to you?
I had employees and I had subcontractors.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I got to the point where I decided that I was getting away from doing the firsthand work that I loved so much in working with clients. It was more about managing the people and managing the client's reactions to the other people who were part of the team. And so I decided to simplify my business. And that was about the same time that I established a niche in my coaching practice within pre-rapid and rapid growth organizations. So that would probably sum it up. Those are the two things. One
So on a personal
one
and on the professional.
Yeah.
I mean, since you touched on it, what you talked about having a niche or specializing, why do you think that's so important? Because we've talked about this a lot, and like maybe having just for from a career perspective, being more focused or specialized. Why do you think that's important?
Because it allows you the opportunity to become the subject matter expertise. I just talked with a startup entrepreneur last week, and the tendency is to be all things to all people. And that's a mistake because it robs you of the opportunity to establish your brand and the brand integrity that's so important when you're in the service business, or really any business for that matter.
So become a yes woman or
exactly.
yes person.
So what you say no to is more important than what you say yes to.
I've learned that.
Yes.
Taken a long time and a lot of work.
Right. So that brand integrity associated with being well and favorably known within an area is where it's at.
Get yourself a niche and specialize. What would you say is your greatest triumph?
Probably when I established that niche, that would be the one professionally. But the thing that would even trump that would be personally raising 3 beautiful, well-equipped humans. And then having just the additional blessing of getting 2 bonus kids later in life that I think I was able to influence in some way.
Oh, that is awesome, having the bonus kids and grandkids.
Right. 2 of those now.
2 of those?
Yeah.
Amazing. My parents always say having grandkids is better than having kids, so that's why I had to add that in there. Okay, so I usually like to ask this question because I think that when somebody can tell me this from their perspective, it's understand self-awareness. It's more along the lines of like you've become truly aware and vulnerable to yourself. So my question for you is, what do you believe your superpower is, Teresa?
I really hope it's my purpose and my life's calling, which is to liberate greatness, to see into an individual and their uniqueness so clearly that I can help them tap into and liberate the things that are greatest for them so that they can be at that place of high performance and high energy.
Since we've talked about the journal or the guide, and you mentioned a study on reflection, I think it was from McKinsey. I wanted to go back to that so that you could just expand on that a little bit more because I thought it was interesting when we talked about it.
Yeah. Thank you for taking us back to that because it's so important. And it was fortuitous that the week I released the book last June, that same week, McKinsey released the study that was so important around reflection. So they had 2 groups of leaders. The one group of leader engaged in core competencies that were important for leaders to be proficient in. The other group engaged in the same development around those core competencies, but they also engaged in journaling and reflection time. Guess what happened?
You tell me. Can't wait.
The group that engaged in reflection time over the longitudinal study became higher performers because they took that opportunity to go from the inside to the outside in their leadership and reflect on the lessons they had learned in leading and through leading.
Well, and that's also just crazy that it came out around the same time that you released your book because it just shows the power of that you've already felt and you've experienced through your 30 plus years of coaching. And then the McKinsey study is further validating the importance of reflection and journaling.
Right.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well said. And I am forever grateful to you for me being able to, I think, lean into my passion and find where I am at my best and brightest and at my best self. So thank you. And thanks for your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
This was just a real treat for me, and I hope for the audience too. I want to do this one more time because this is a real amazing tool, The Way to Wisdom, and Teresa Carey, Executive Leadership Coach. If you did enjoy what you heard today, please like, subscribe, or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'll give Teresa one more chance to tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, so of course I'm on LinkedIn, Teresa G. Carey. Performance Point is on LinkedIn. And then we have a website, obviously, Performance Point with an E on the end, performancepoint with an E on the end.com. And then we are also on Facebook, performancepoint.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for joining us. And thanks to everyone for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
The views expressed in this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only and do not consider any individual, personal, financial, legal, or tax situation. As such, the information contained herein intended and should not be construed as a specific recommendation, individualized tax, legal, or investment advice. Where specific advice is necessary or appropriate, individuals should contact their own professional tax and investment advisors or other professionals regarding their specific circumstances and needs prior to taking any action based upon this information. The information provided has been obtained from sources deemed reliable. However, the accuracy, completeness, and reliability cannot be guaranteed. Tax laws are subject to change, either prospectively or retroactively. Any opinions expressed are subject to change at any time without notice. There is no assurance that any investment, plan, or strategy will be successful. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, and any opinion expressed herein should not be viewed as an indicator of future performance. Mariner is the marketing name for the financial services business of Mariner Wealth Advisors, LLC, and its subsidiaries. Investment advisory services are provided through the brands Mariner Wealth, Mariner Independent, Mariner Institutional, Mariner Ultra, and Mariner Workplace, each of which is a business name of the registered investment advisory entities of Mariner. For additional information about each of the registered investment advisory entities of Mariner, including fees and services, please contact Mariner or refer to each entity's Form ADV Part 2A, which is available on the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training.